Welcome back. Another episode, Visionaries. This is the episode of the Hawk Vision Podcast. I am your host, Chuck Hawkins, here to help you shorten the learning curve on your journey to greatness. As always, hit the button. Matter of fact, pick one. Like, share, subscribe, or push all three. Most importantly, make sure you share this episode with other visionaries just like you across your social media platforms. This week's guest is someone that I couldn't wait to confirm. He's been the secret weapon behind so many of our previous guests in regards to accountability and productivity and structure and strengthening belief systems that we absolutely had to have him come on. Someone with an online presence that is filled with energy, affirmations. His community does not play about him. They are engaged. They share information and resources. And I personally have never seen a community actively support each other like his. He has a track record of success, bridging the gap between vision and implementation. He is Mr. Ryan Cox. Ryan, welcome to the show, sir.
I appreciate that introduction. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. You've been killing it, and we've had so many of the guests in common, and we'll start throwing names out soon. But everybody's like, "No, Chuck, you gotta have him on." So I'm excited to have you on today.
Well, I'm going to live up to the hype, I hope, and it'll be a fun conversation. I'm ready to go.
Absolutely, and I have my coffee. I don't do nothing without it, so we're good.
Touche.
Absolutely. So you don't know this, but a while back I tweeted that there's a hell of an industry waiting to be capitalized on if someone could teach time management, which of course goes hand in hand with accountability. So long story short, my DMs popped off. Oh my God, that's Ryan. So that's kind of how the ball started rolling. If you had to simplify the definition of accountability, what would you say?
Um, Someone that is going to keep you on track for what you need to do, who has one very important trait that you trust them. Because nobody wants to be held accountable by someone they don't respect, don't trust, or doesn't feel like is on their level. And I learned that there are a whole lot of people out there that, I coach up, meaning that everyone that I work with is way out of my league, because I just realized that there were a couple things that pretty much everyone struggled with, and that was a superpower I had in spades. So
Yeah.
why not put it to work?
So, that brings me to a question, and of course, we're immediately off track, right? Because those type A personalities, those you saying that you coach up, those people that are high producers, they typically have problems asking for help because of just that, is that trust factor. So, how do you break through? How do you help there?
Well, I can speak for me personally, and the way that I break through is I am I'm a direct motherfucker. Like it's just what I am. I don't pull any punches. I don't beat around the bush. I've just always been very outgoing, aggressive, uh, in your face, forward, active, like anything that you can think of that's like 1% of 1% when it comes to like doing something first. I've always been that. And I learned that because I'm so direct and so forward, that can be something that is taken the wrong way sometimes. But because I'm the same person on that 7th and 17th and 27th day that I was day one,
Yeah.
people eventually come around to, oh, that's just Ryan.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the best part. I recently went to attend a service for someone that recently passed, and one of the things that everybody marveled at, and kind of to circle back, but one of the things that everybody marveled at is from personal life to corporate to professional, kind of side gigs, sports. Everybody got the same version of this person, and it was the crowd that gathered was so diverse. It was just amazing to see that. So I know that is absolutely a superpower when somebody says, "Nope, that's Ryan. That's who you're getting." I love it.
Yeah, you do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And sometimes people approach it differently than others. But if you're consistently doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. If your messaging or your approach or your communication style for it is different,
Yeah.
then sometimes you have to modify it in order to connect with the person. But it's not hard to download the authenticity from them because you're seeing what you get.
Right. Right. Totally agree. So I guess let's work backwards a little bit. When did you know that this was a business for you, that you could make money off of helping people accomplish their goals?
When I high-fived the doctor when I was born. No. uh, the honest answer is it's something that people from my past, or that have known me since I was little, would probably tell you that when they find out what I do now, after I figure out how to try to explain it to them, because they're like, you do what, and they pay you for what,
Right.
they would say, oh no, that makes sense, okay, I get it. But specifically to answer your question, it would have been about a little over a year and a half ago. I had been doing it on the side for a couple years, sometimes for free, sometimes I'd have people pay me. I'd go through waves with it. And then about October of last year, I said, okay, like I've been in marketing and advertising for 13 years. I'm good at it. I'm probably not great at it because
Sure.
I'm never giving it my all. I've always got something else going on. And I said, I think I want to do this. And I had given myself about a 14 to 16 month plan of transitioning out of my current role, or out of my current role at the time,
Sure.
into it. And then some things happened in February of last year that I said, oh no, I'm going to have to do this quicker. And here we are.
Wow. Wow. I love it. I read a while back where you said that active listening is a hell of a cheat code. What did you mean by that?
I learned at a very young age, and I probably used this ability for bad when I was a teenager. But um, if you go into a situation with ears on, not mouth on, people are pretty much going to give you the cheat code to anything that you need. They're going to explain exactly what they want from you, exactly what they like, exactly what they need, exactly how you can communicate to them. If you're just there to listen, not to win, not to talk, not to manipulate. And I learned that by active listening and asking questions that evoke a response that is triggered by an emotion, you're getting all of these data points. And if you're there with the intent to acknowledge and group these data points, you can get an awful lot of information that then you can act on, because the person is basically giving you the game plan.
Wow. Wow. My father used to tell me when I was young and entering the dating space, my dad he would say that a woman will tell you exactly what type of man she's looking for if you shut up and listen, and then your choice is to be that man or not, right?
Yep.
So to that point, I guess I love the accountability side from it and pulling out the different things that motivate people. But my question would be, how do you know, what if the person is not a talker, right? Like, I think people will have, in the entrepreneurship space, people will have these
Mm-hmm.
issues that they think are the issue, right? I know I don't market as much, I know I don't post enough, I should take that more seriously, but the underlying issue is fear of rejection or nobody liking the post, or imposter syndrome. How do you
Mm-hmm.
help uncover that?
Asking questions, engaging, even if it's someone that doesn't like to talk and doesn't have a lot to say, you ask penetrating questions that, again, evoke a response that comes from emotion, because that's going to start to open the door for you. And you just have to be able to have a crack of the door open to see what's in a room, right? Like if
Yeah.
you were spying because your parents were, uh, it was Christmas Eve and they were putting out all the presents and stuff, right? You didn't have to swing the door all the way open to be able to see a direct line to like the living room or something, right?
Right.
Just a crack. If you get just a crack from someone, you can start to gain more clarity of the overall picture. And if you start to gain clarity, then you can start to ask like follow-up questions and follow-on questions. It's a lot like what you see lawyers do in a courtroom, and you can't lead the witness, right? Like,
Right.
objection, Your Honor, leading the witness. Well, you're kind of leading people in conversations when they're not just blah, here's everything, because you're trying to get more out of them. Sometimes you're going to start to lead the wrong way, and something's going to trigger you that, oh, like this is the wrong way, and you have to kind of maneuver another way. But it's just, if you can get them answering specific questions and not general questions, you can start to build a better plan.
Nice, nice. So how long do you work in that space before you come up with a plan of action for your client?
Well, we would have an onboarding call, and the
Cool.
onboarding call comes with some homework where it's a bunch of questions that I ask, that I would have them fill out. And what I always say is, if you just got done answering a question and you look back and say, holy shit, that's a lot, then you
Yeah.
probably answered just enough. Because the more you give me, the more that we don't have to waste additional conversations or calls, me extrapolating that information that I need to be able to figure out what's going on. But generally
Mm,
speaking, between that onboarding call and probably the first month of calls, we've we've downloaded all of the information of you. We've figured out your trigger points, your can't go here, can go there. This is what the ultimate goal is. And we've not only created the plan, but started to execute it by probably the third or fourth call.
I love it. I love it. So I'm sure you've heard this, but let's play it out. uh, Ryan, I believe in my business, but I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and I just can't seem to make time for my business. What do you say to that person, or even for the husband? 9 to 5, I want to be a better husband and father, and even though I'm really good at it, this side thing, this business that I want to launch, I can't seem to get into the right place. How does Ryan
I
handle
would I would send you I would send you a worksheet where you quite literally map out your time. Like, okay, tell me where your time goes. Like, I want to see, and you can round up to the hour. Okay, I'm at work for this much time. I actually work at work this much time.
it?
And,
Yeah.
this 5 to 7 block is for family time only, non-negotiable. Like, where are your non-negotiables in your calendar? And then where is that gray area that I can start to poke at things like, I feel like there isn't a whole truth here, because do you really go to bed at 9 o'clock, or are you in your bed from 9 to 11 o'clock on your phone playing Clash of Clans? Because if you are, then that's 2 hours right there that you're not sleeping like this sheet says you are, that
Right.
we would be able to knock something out. And then if it's 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and you have a Saturday and Sunday, tell me where your time goes on Saturday and Sunday. Because here's the thing about it. Everyone thinks about things in their most complex form. And we're just wired that way as humans, that we don't ever rush to the easy solution. We rush to the most difficult solution. And when I work with someone, whether it's a friend or a client, my entire game plan, my entire makeup is that you're going to realize very, very quickly that I am not that, oh my God, level smart. I do things in a lot of simple terms, simple ways, simple understanding, because if I can keep things simple, you think less, act more. And that whole, KISS, keep it simple, stupid, it's an
Yes.
analogy, or it's anagram for a reason, right? Because it elicits oh yeah, I'm supposed to do something. So yeah.
No, I love it. It's weird because I think we live in this this social media space where we start to worry about the analytics and the algorithms and all the things that we have to pre-schedule, and then content creation gets hard, or making the sales calls, for the old school people to still do sales, hand to hand, making the sales calls become these big gorillas that we can't, get off of our back. And so I think that it's important that you keep things as simple as you do, but when Ryan goes away, our brains take back over. Where does
And
that system come in?
practice. I mean, like anything else, like LeBron James or Michael Jordan become the best basketball player because they woke up one day and was like, oh, basketball seems cool. Like, I'm going to play that. Like, no,
Yes.
we see the end result. Again, we see the end result of all of that time that Michael Jordan or Gary Payton or Sean Kemp, I used to love the Sonics.
I was about to say, what you
But
know about Gary Payton, man? That's
oh, I played, quick sidebar. I was actually a pretty good ball player back in the day, in that I could shoot extremely well and I
okay.
loved to play defense, right?
Okay.
So, like, my dad would have us pressing full court in the YMCA league because he knew that that's what I loved to do. And Gary Payton, aka the Glove, like, he was
Yes.
the best defender in the NBA. So he was my favorite player for the majority of my youth because he played my position and he
Yeah.
loved to play defense, right? So to get back to answering your question, it's repetition. It's
Yeah.
practice and repetition. And guess what? I'm going to scream again, whether it's a friend, a client, or just someone on the timeline, that, like, guess what? Practice grace with yourself. You're not perfect. You're
Mm.
not wired to be perfect. You won't be perfect. So what I like to do is I'll send someone, it's this quick, like, mind, like one of those math mind problems, right? Like,
Okay.
I'll show it to you really fast and say, you've got 5 seconds. Is the answer to this positive or negative? And it's one of those things that you've only got 5 seconds and you're looking at it, and there are more negatives and the two biggest numbers are negative, so your brain automatically guesses negative, right?
Sure.
But if once you slow down to add them up, like, the answer is actually like +8, like, so a
Wow.
+8. And I use that example because it's like, that's just what it's like when we're doing something, right? Like, I don't look at the weekly stuff. It's what's the net result of it, right? So, like, if you're 4% better this week, -2%, like, you see where I'm going with this.
Absolutely.
If the end result is that after a quarter or after a sprint, you're 15% more efficient and effective than you were before, which means you got 15% more done. Guess what? By the end of 90 days or 6 months, you're like, shit, I'm knocking things out. Like,
Right.
I'm having to add things to a to-do list that was just always there, and it was like I was never going to get to it.
Oh my God. I am a to-do list dinosaur, right? Like, I still write out after I, wake up, have my first cup of coffee to where I can, like, function and not, try to attack everybody in my sight. Um, I'm a to-do list dinosaur. I still write down my top 5 things for the day. And I call a day successful if I can get rid of 3 of those things. And I don't care how small they are. Like, one of them could be take the garbage out. If I do that, I measure myself successful. Um, but when you were speaking, it made me think about those old, what was the acronym for SMART goals, right? Where it's specific, measurable, attainable. I never remember what the R is, and time bound, right? So
Yeah.
is that similar to how you approach it, so that you can, cumulatively look over it at a quarter?
Yep. So I always say, okay, well, what are we achieving? What are the goals? And, for this quarter, what are the goals? 4 or 5 goals. You want to tell me you have 7, I'm going to listen to you, but it's only so that I can then tell you, yeah, that's not really a goal because you're just trying to make it a bigger number, right? Like, that's not
Yes.
realistically 3 to 5 things. If they're a big enough goal, that's all any one person can achieve. In a quarter or in 90 days. So I'll ask you for your, 3, 4, 5 goals, and then say, okay, what I want you to always hear in the back of your head is Ryan saying, that's fantastic. Is that broken down enough? If the answer is no, you have to go down a level. Okay. So we always build backwards to execute forwards. And the building backwards is goal, milestone, daily activities. And if you have the goals broken down to the milestones so that you know what you need to do to reach it, and then the daily activities, these are those things that are going to go on your 5 list of, if I'm doing these every single day, or if I'm doing something from this pool every single day, I'm going to hit the milestones, which means I'm going to hit the goals. And the analogy that I like to use is, okay, if I were to blindfold you right now, spin you around 5 times, open the door to a dark room and said, okay, hit the bullseye, like hit the dartboard. Can you hit the dartboard? No,
Impossible.
because you
Right.
don't know if there's a dartboard in the room. You don't know how big the room is. The room is dark. You have a blindfold on and you're a little dizzy because I just spun you around, right?
Right.
But
Correct.
if I don't spin you, if I remove the blindfold, if I turn the light on, if I turn the dartboard around, and if I set you 10 feet or whatever the distance is in front of the dartboard, can you hit it now? So I use that analogy because it's a night and day of no shot, great shot, right?
Right. Right.
And that's the thing that I found, that the majority of successful people have 2 underlying foundational traits. They show up more than most people. They work harder more than most people. That's it. There isn't a secret sauce. There isn't anything else outside of those 2, like, core competencies is what I'll say. But they've gotten to a level of success because they can show up and work harder more than most people. But that doesn't mean they're working smarter, right? It just means they're
Correct.
working harder. So I like to work with someone that I identify as like, oh, damn, like they have those 2 traits. Now, let's see if we can get them to stop long enough to step back and say, what are we doing and why are we doing it? And if we do, I bet they can become even more successful.
Wow. There's so much in that. When you say that you coach up, how do you leave it up to your clients or your potential clients to tell you what success looks like? Do they come and say, I want to increase sales or I want to increase my footprint? How do you navigate what success looks like?
Yes, the first part of my answer to your question is yes. I asked them, again, a lot of penetrating questions to get an idea of what success means, looks like, feels like to them. The other thing
Okay.
I do, and this will probably be a good segue for you, is I just slide in DMs and ask to buy people coffee and listen to their story. Because more often than not,
Yes.
in the midst of telling their story, they're going to immediately take advantage of that and start to tell me all the things that they want to do that they just aren't doing right now.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny because I can't count on one hand or email or whatever the amount of times where the people that I just knew were killing it would say, I can't seem to wrap my head around this, or I need to do this, and I can't. And on the outside looking in, I'm like, are you serious? Like you're looking pretty God level right now with what you're already doing. But I guess, back to that type A personality, there's always that thing that is, elusive when you're a dream chaser or a visionary, a goal getter. And I love the Bayou coffee approach because one, I am an absolute lover of coffee, um, like a die-hard lover of coffee. But two, it's so accommodating, right? It's not intrusive, it's not aggressive. It's just like, hey, you may need an outlet to talk. Let's talk. When did that become a method for you? The buy the cup of coffee approach.
With the very first one that I did, I was just looking for something to be different because I had gotten to that point in my marketing career because I wasn't afraid to ask, again, those people that you thought were out of your league
Yeah.
questions, or, you know, and it wasn't, hey, I want you to mentor me, or hey, can we grab coffee? It was always, I always attached it to a specific reason, because I learned that asking for someone to coffee, who gets asked to coffee 1,000 times, you're going to get a no. If you ask them with specific reason, like, I'm really struggling with this, something that they can, that is tangible, that they have an
Yes.
answer for, they're more likely or more apt to say yes.
Right.
So I learned that approach, but because all of this was digital, meaning like I'm not flying to Atlanta or Madrid, Spain, or
Right.
California, couldn't do that. So I couldn't buy the coffee because we were physically there. So it was just a natural extension to, hey, I'm going to buy the coffee, and I just want to listen. And I was be very specific. I'm not going to tell you anything about what I do unless you ask. I am really here to listen. And there have been instances where they didn't ask anything about like what I did professionally or anything like that. And I
Sure.
didn't go into any kind of pitch or angle towards any kind of pitch or anything like that. And I can give you one specific example where the person that I had bought coffee for didn't, I told them I wasn't going to pitch. I wasn't going to bring up what I did. The conversation never went that way at all.
Sure.
And it ended in, I was like, cool, you know, like they're not going to be a client, but I've made a new friend.
Yeah.
And I just kept active with that person. And I don't know, like 3 or 4 months after that, they did something on the timeline, and I messaged him. I was like, hey, you and I both know that you were screaming for someone to say this to you. So, you know, put down your phone, go and do that. You not only need it, but you deserve to be able to do that. And
Wow.
then like a week later, I checked in on them, and they were like, and I just said something, you know, like, oh, and hey, you know, if there's anything I can ever do for you, don't hesitate to let me know, because if that day ever comes, I'd absolutely love to work with you. And they
Yeah.
said, oh, don't worry, you're going to be getting a call this month, if not next. And
Nice.
like, didn't expect that at all. But it just goes to show that if you truly do approach something without the intent of making the sale right there and really just building a real relationship with someone, the business
Yes.
comes.
Wow. Yeah, I had a young lady on the show a while back, Denise the broker. She runs a brokerage agency in Atlanta for uh commercial and residential real estate, has like 80 brokers for her. And she says the one thing that she teaches her agents never to have is commission breath, right? Which is everything you're doing is because you want to sell right then. Like she's really, really harps on building actual relationships, right? So you can help down the line. So totally
Mm-hmm.
agree. Now, when I once we got this interview confirmed, right? I was super excited because I'm sure you've heard this. In our industry, we hear phrases like you have to know your why. And we hear statements like you're just one decision away. What do you say to those phrases and what have they done to the entrepreneurship space?
Um, I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I think anything that you can draw motivation from is a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, the thing I would caution people on, is becoming motivation dependent. And what I mean by that
Mm,
is like, if you have to wake up every day and download 35 minutes of other people like just saying fairly generic, like you're gonna crush it, be great today's, then like where is your internal North Star? Because
right.
you're depending on an awful lot of other factors or juicers to get you to what you're trying to do. So I would love to talk to the person that needs to have all of that, because I would say you're having to plug into a lot of other ports to
Right.
get started. So why is that? But abstaining from that specifically, I think that it's a good thing. Like, you You do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, but like put more good into the world, right? I like the idea of, if it makes me feel good to share something positive to a mass audience, like whoever can see it, I don't have a problem or care if Susie in Iowa thinks that I'm just doing it for the gram or something like that. Okay, Susie in Iowa, I'm sorry, but I don't care.
Right, right. That's so strong. That's so strong. So there's always, and I think that leads me to the next, kind of question is there's always these the professional lingo, right? The difficult conversation, the rewarding of consistency, and all those things. You said you like to have the difficult conversation. Like most people run from. How is
Yeah,
that your
no,
thing?
I run to them, and that probably gets me in more trouble than not, because again, just my nature, like I jump to BFF status really fast because I come arms wide open,
Yes,
and I'm looking to, metaphorically speaking, I'm looking to hug, I'm looking to embrace, I'm looking to engage, I'm looking to activate, and what gets me in trouble is when I forget that not everyone receives that the same way. And even if my intentions are the absolute best, some people can receive that the wrong way because I have failed to slow my roll essentially in how I was communicating and what I was communicating and explaining everything,
yeah,
because in reality, they don't know me from Adam, and it can be a lot at once. So when that happens, I'll get butt hurt for like, 30 seconds, but then, I'll take away, what could I have done differently? What was
sure.
wrong in my approach? Where did I fail to make intent crystal clear?
Mm. I love that you're aware of it. I think, most people think their personalities are just their personality and everybody is supposed to like it. But, to your point, you said, I know I can be a lot sometimes. Do you give your potential clients a disclaimer and
Oh
let them
yeah,
know?
I'll give anyone that I talk to, or message or or email, whatever, like, hey, I realize that this is an awful lot. I realize that this is extremely forward. I realize that, I may not look like the typical person, or because of what I look like, it feels awfully like, wait, I've seen this in a movie before. Like, um and I try to be very transparent that I understand what what your experience with this kind of personality usually ends like,
Right.
uh and I look forward to changing that belief about me, but you're not the only person that sees it. Trust me, I do too.
I think that's one of the parts that I like the most about not only you as a person, but as your community. Because I mean, we're on Twitter all the time, and when I tell you, people are like, "No, Ryan, that's absolutely." I fucks with Ryan a long way. Like I remember when Carmen said that, and I was just like, "I love it instantly." Like I knew we were gonna be boys on that part. So my question would be, do you ever sit back and look at the people that you've helped and start to equate that to legacy, or how does it feel to know that across the spectrum, right, you've had all these different cultures and been able to help people, secure the bag? How does that feel?
It's what motivates me. It's what drives me. Like I'll say it to someone the first time I talk to them. I'll say it on the timeline. I'm about to say it on your podcast. Like it, you winning doesn't make me lose, and you winning doesn't mean that I can't win. So my general makeup is, I can't celebrate, cheer, help you fast enough, because I like to see other people win. And my track record shows that that's not just marketing talk. Like, no, that's just who Ryan is. Like,
Yes.
I don't care what it means for me. If I contributed anything to someone else winning, it was a damn good day.
Yeah. I'm of the same fashion. I think that, we've heard that story. If you help enough people get what they want, you get what you want by default, right?
Hmm. No,
Um,
it's when you help someone else. Here's the thing that people miss about it. Like again,
yeah,
I'm always long game, long game, long game, chess not checkers, chess not checkers. You outside of speed chess or playing someone that's way under your level, like you don't win chess in 5 moves.
right.
So checkers is a much more fast paced game. Chess, again, not counting speed chess,
Sure.
is a much more elongated game.
Hmm.
And if you're trying to play chess at a checkers pace, you're never going to win. Um, and I am a huge advocate for play the long game, because if you pour into others, if you help others, if you stay on brand with your time spent helping,
Yes.
things come back around. Opportunities are going to come your way. Like it's, you can say it's the universe, you can say it's something else. I don't care how you justify it. It
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. So has this ever happened to you? What happens when a person says or feels like they're broken, right? Like they get a system and it works for 90 days or it works for 3 weeks or whatever, and they just can't seem to be consistent with the system. It's like one of the things I used to interview coaches exclusively. And the one thing I always heard is that once they feel like they got it, they stop coming back for coaching. What happens
Yeah,
in that
it's
area?
like, okay, you go to get your oil changed, and they change your oil and they fix your alignment and all that stuff, and you think, oh, my car is great, until it's not. And then you take it right back there when you need to, right? So
Right.
coaching or professional development, professional help is a lot of the same way. There might be some people that I work for ongoing, 2, 3, 4 years, because it's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it, and it's working, and this is something I want, I'm going to keep it. And then there might be other people where it's like, no, I had a specific goal for this year and Ryan helped me achieve it, but I don't really have that kind of a goal this year, so it doesn't necessarily make sense for me to work with him. And
Right.
that's cool. But to circle back to the question, I think that you have to be able to identify that, well, all of these people that you aspire to be or you hold
Yes.
in certain like levels. What I always say, the example that I always like to give is, well, you do realize that LeBron James has a therapist, and he has a business coach, and he has a basketball like mental coach, and he has a financial advisor, and like he has a specialist for literally every discipline there is, because he can afford it,
Right.
right?
Right.
So since you can't afford that, if you can't afford working with someone that is a specialist in an area of need that you have, invest in yourself.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of people, I saw a meme not too long ago where it says, uh, $100 on a pair of shoes is perfect. $100 for a course for coaching is too expensive. And they went on and on about how we tend not to put enough value on personal coaching, but we'll complain, knowing that the answer is available. We just don't put the value on it. And so that my question there would be, how did you learn to evaluate your offerings, right? Like coaching is a $1 billion industry. It seems like everybody is in it now that Instagram is a thing and social media has been
Mhm.
able to shorten the I mean, sorry, close the gaps in how big the world is. How were you able to evaluate what you offer?
So, the very first client that I pitched, we had met because the previous night, I, like many Americans, was up way too late on my phone tweeting. And um, it was the story of, there was a couple. So this wasn't last year. This was like October of 2019. There
Okay.
was a fairly wealthy and um, like well-known couple in Seattle. Like one of them, I think he was like a mayor or something like that. They got outed for being racist. Like they had
Oh, okay.
said some
Okay.
things or done some things, and of course, like timeline in general was just going at these people like they should, yada yada yada. And then there was this one guy, I don't remember specifically who he is or what he does, but he had rose claim to fame as being like the father of one of the web languages, like JavaScript or something like that. Like he had,
Yes. Okay.
I don't remember which language it was. Anyways, he started to go at everyone that was going at them, right? So
Okay.
again, generally speaking, it was this white guy attacking a bunch of black and brown people who were mad that this white couple was racist, right? Like
Okay.
that was the situation. And there was this person that was like retweeting everything that I was saying, and I was retweeting everything they were saying. And I go the next day, I see a friend go live, meaning they're just sitting there with their phone at a
Sure.
conference, and the person on stage, I go, wait a second, I recognize them. Like I was just tweeting with them last night. And then I went to their page and was like, oh wow, like they're a big deal. So that was the very first DM slide that I did. And it
Wow.
was like, I thought, I I sent a DM and I said, I want to, hear your story. I'll buy the coffee. They said, absolutely. When I get back to the States, let's do it. And I gave the backstory. I gave this backstory because I started working with this person for a few weeks, and it became the end of November. And I said, look, we both know that we want to work together. This is going to be great. Why don't we start now in December so that we can ramp up and hit the ground running in January? And
Yes.
they were like, cool. Like, what do I get? Like, what does that look like? I hadn't come up with packages. I didn't have pricing.
Oh my
I
God.
hadn't thought that far ahead.
Sure.
So on the spot, I came up with something and I set a price.
Okay.
And in my mind, I didn't want to say 1,000 because I felt like it wasn't enough. I didn't want to say 1,500 because I felt like it was too much. So I said 1,250.
Yes.
And they were like, cool. Do you have Chase Quick Pay? And the joke that I always tell is I said, son of a bitch, I should have said 3,000. But
I love it.
I came to find out that for what I was offering, that was a good price, and it was kind of on the low side if you take in like the New York and the
Sure.
California stuff.
Yes.
And I'll always tell someone to build on. I finally answered your question, but I'm going to build on that. I'm always going to tell someone, like, what do you think your time is worth? What does the market, meaning what can you glean from other people doing that stuff? Generally speaking, what the prices are. And guess what? If it's in the ballpark of what prices are and it's what you want to charge, then that's what you charge. Because
Yes.
here's the proof. If the market isn't willing to pay that for you, they'll let you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no
Absolutely.
reason that you have to undersell yourself and not charge enough, because the market will tell you if you're charging too much.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a good example of that is we're watching the rise of these street chefs now, right? These people that are, they're some are real chefs, some are just real good cooks, and they're starting to sell plates, on Instagram or whatever. And I'll never forget, there's a gentleman that I absolutely love, sells $100 burrito, and of course, the first time I'm looking at it, I'm like, he is out of his damn mind. Like, who's spending $100? I don't care how much steak and crab you put in it. It's $100 burrito. Like, that's groceries for some people. Until I tried it. and when I tried it, my wife was like, oh my God, this is the best burrito I've ever had in my life. Like, we need more. Then I told her how much it was. And she was like, have you lost your mind? What are you doing? A couple of days later, she was like, but we can't do another one. Like, we can do a couple more of those. So I totally agree. The market will tell you what you can charge. Um, you are, you know what I love about Ryan? What I love about you, Ryan, is that you are. I think people can tell that you're a giver, right? And one of the things that I tell all of my followers, anybody that's ever listening, is if you're a giver, you have to set limits because takers don't have any, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does Ryan recharge after giving so much of himself every day, all day?
The great thing or fortunate thing about being a giver is that because it's in your nature who you are, if you're good at setting those limits, the giving actually recharges you. So,
Mm,
like seeing the result of the giving is the thing that sends me like through the roof, excited, proud, happy, elated, which makes it easier to show up the next day because I really like that feeling.
right.
But the problem or the catch 22 with being a giver is that it is really hard to set limits
Yes.
because and boundaries and like no thank yous because you just always want to be the one providing, not being provided for, or giving,
Right.
not being given. So it's it's again, I have to remind myself that I'm not going to be perfect, that I'm going to have some spouts where like I go way overboard and I extend myself too much. Um, I went through a phase of buying and sending people books because
Hmm.
it was a way for me to build brand awareness and business potentially, but it's just like the videos that I would get of someone opening a box of books that they weren't expecting, like was just a high that I couldn't describe. But
Yeah.
I put myself in a little bit of a bad position because I was a brand new business. I wasn't like doing crazy numbers or anything like that, but I was spending all of my budget and then some on just sending people like 4 and 5 books in a in
Yeah.
a in a in a send, and
Right.
that would be a real example of Ryan put himself behind the 8 ball for almost 2 months because I sent way too many books. But it was just because I didn't set a boundary of, okay, Ryan, I know that you want to send everyone books, but you can't go
Yeah.
past this.
Right. Right. So you mentioned books, and of course, we have the classics: Think and Grow Rich, The Millionaire Next Door. What is it? Think Big by David Schwartz. What are Ryan's favorite books?
Oh, um, man, do I have a copy?
I love it. I love it. I love that you have them close. Like I am
I
so
don't
big.
I don't have a copy of the one that I was going to use.
Oh no.
Um, but I do have 4 of the books that I would send people.
Uh
So my
oh.
friend Minda Hart, it's her book, The Minmo.
Oh my God! I
And
follow Minda. She is awesome.
she I sent I'm on the board of directors for the Finance Academy at the high school that I graduated from, and I gave all 19 of the seniors, graduating senior female seniors, a copy of her book 2 years
Okay.
ago.
Okay.
There's Dr. Nikki Washington, Unapologetically Dope. I've sent
Yes.
her book to a bunch of people. Um, Bari Williams, The Greatest Lawyer Ever, also a client. She has a book called Diversity in the Workplace.
Yes.
And then this is one that I just started sending. But so again, this is something I saw Haben on the timeline.
Okay.
And because her story was in like the Times or something like that. But I don't know if you can read it, but it says the deaf-blind woman who conquered Harvard Law.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
so like I don't remember what like CNN or whatever her story was on, but like of course I watched it in one of these, it's one of these, like 5-minute things, and
Sure.
you get done watching it and like you can't help but just sit there for a second and say, damn, what the fuck has been my excuse?
Yes.
Because because she tackled Harvard Law and is deaf and blind. So like I'm complaining about what, so
Yes.
it gives you a hell of a perspective of like there are people with different journeys than you, more difficult journeys than you, and they got it done.
Yeah.
So what is the real thing that's holding you back? But I would, man, um, Rich Dad Poor Dad is probably what I would say my favorite book is, because
Wow.
it's the book that my high school entrepreneurship or finance academy teacher shared, and it's what made me. I didn't listen to my dad, but this book and that teacher is what made me realize like what real, like how to build actual wealth
Yes.
and what entrepreneurship was. And that book is the thing that launched me into, well, this is why I'm going to do these things, and this is why I want to be an entrepreneur.
Wow. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Those quadrants blew me away. It took me so long to just wrap my head around those quadrants. And I love the example you gave about Haben, the deaf and blind, and taking on Harvard. I did an interview once, and you probably know her, Kashira Moffett. And when I hung up with Kashira, like I same thing. I was just like, what the hell? Like, how is she? You know, I've got her by a few years. I never tell her how old I am. I got her by a few years, but I'm like, how is she so bomb? And
Yeah,
it just
she'll
it
make
made
you
no
want to run
sense.
through a wall. She is someone who, after you get done talking to her, whether it's tweeting her, messaging her, talking to her on the phone, like it's hard not to want to run through a wall.
Yeah, she makes you feel 10 feet tall and bulletproof. Like I think her superpower is making you feel like an X-Man. So let me ask you, we're getting close to wrapping up. A couple of things. I want to ask you a couple of words. You tell me how you define what those words mean to you, or define them, or whatever the case is.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there. The first word is action.
Something that you should take.
Okay.
That's exactly what I think of, because action is something you should do. It means that it's worthless to you if you're not doing it, executing it, attempting it. Um, it's shut up and do it already.
What about the word vision?
Planning. So I'm OCPD when it comes to planning, and um, that's not fake doctor guy diagnosing. So
Sure.
it's not. I don't use it because I'm describing something. Like when I was a kid, I I would play sometimes inside by lining up my toys, smallest to largest Roy G. Biv, color coded.
Okay.
So vision to me, the first thing that I think of is having a plan, taking a step back and saying, okay, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? How are we doing it? And what do we need in order to accomplish it?
Hmm. I like it. I like it. What about belief?
Belief. The first thing that comes to mind, or how I would describe belief, is if you can't feel it in your bones, you better figure out why.
Hmm.
Because if you don't have belief in something means that it doesn't matter what someone else says, like it's in your blood, it's in your bones. You can't be you can't be knocked off of that hill. You're king of the hill on that hill, and it's impossible to get you off of it. That's what belief is. And
Wow.
if you don't have it, figure out why.
How do you block out the noise personally so that you can not only find ways to develop yourself, but find new ways to develop your clients?
I would say that blocking the noise is probably something that of if if there are things seated on the struggle bus, that's probably one of the things that would be on my struggle bus. Because I am such hypersensitive in my emotions kind of person. It
Sure.
does me great in so many things, but um, hearing other people or seeing other people do and say things about me or that affect me because of their own reasons of doing something can affect
Sure.
me more than it can affect um, most people. So for me, I think it's that you have to be able to um, wow, you have to be able to separate reality from um, the emotions of things that people say and do. And
Wow.
if you can step back and see things for what they really are, you're going to realize that that emotion that you felt in that moment, it doesn't have a very long shelf life.
Wow. Wow. I had a mentor by the name of Edwin Haynes, still my mentor. And he always tells me, Chuck, commitment is doing something after the emotion that allowed you to make the decision wears off. And so that was my introduction, I think, to managing emotions in terms of entrepreneurship or, business building, even dream chasing, marriage. Like
Right.
managing those emotions is so taxing. Like I believe that's why
Yeah.
whiskey was invented personally.
I won't
And
argue with you there.
listen, there's some things that coffee can handle. There's some other things that only a good whiskey will fix.
Amen.
Um, what's next for Ryan Cox?
So for next, for me is that I'm really dialing in on the current client base that I have. I'm
Okay.
working with some pretty amazing people and delivering this year. I have a fair amount of business that's on the goal line that I'm looking to close. But outside of starting to show up for myself like I should when it comes to,
Yeah.
the email list and doing some things so that I'm not having to have so many let me buy you coffee scenarios because there are other ways that I'm generating business. The
Yes.
big goal for Ryan and what's next this year is I want to start to do some things, hopefully by the third and fourth quarter, um, corporate side, meaning going into companies and having some workshops with the entire company because there is a lot that I can unpack and up level someone on in just a day it, with changing perspective, opening their eyes to new mindsets and things like that, that can benefit all departments. And I really would like to be able to do some one-offs with a bigger audience
Yeah.
because as much as I want to one-on-one coach everyone in the world, that's not realistic. So
Yes.
I'm not someone that personally is going to do a group coaching model right now because I just feel like my touch points are so much higher that it can't fit into a group coaching dynamic.
Okay.
However, I can do the benefits of the group coaching thing because that first 10 yards, if you can get someone to start moving in that direction, it really will prove um, to be well worth the money for the companies.
Absolutely love it. Yeah, I think that's the hard part about being a coach, I think, is that figuring out when to switch from that one-to-one to the group coaching because you want everybody to experience that same breakthrough. And in the group coaching model, it's just, it's not the same. So I totally understand that. Um, let everybody know, we got to do that part where let everybody know where they can find you online.
Right. So my coaching website is coxcoaching.co. And pretty much any website, whether it's Instagram, um, Facebook, Twitter, my username is Ryan Lee Cox, and that's Leecox. And you there isn't there isn't a reason not to message me or at me or say hi, because I'm genuinely going to be excited by it and want to learn about you and wanting to pour into you probably right away, because it's just who I am. But um, it's it was really cool to hear that there were people that had brought up my name that had been on your podcast before, because I know different than anyone else. Like, you don't realize that other people are talking about you, or
Yes.
you left an impression or impact on them. You don't understand all of it, and then the few times that you do hear about it, man, like, I wanted to run through the wall 5 times the first time that you messaged me that, because even someone who seems as dialed in, as confident as I am, it's really good to get those validations that, like, oh,
Absolutely.
okay, so this is working, and people are receiving it the way that I intended them to, and it's
Yeah.
beneficial to them. Like, that feedback is invaluable for even someone like me. So I guess my parting shot would be to the anyone that listens to this podcast, whether it be tomorrow or in 2025, is don't be afraid or don't forget to let those people know, who have impacted you. Know, like, it doesn't have to be changed my life impact. It could just be at a smaller level. But if you go out of your way a couple times a week to let the people know that have impacted you, again, that's just that's starting that train of, like, oh, well, they did this to me, so I'm going to do it to someone else. And, like, that's a good that's a good train to start.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was important for me to do it because not only, when it happens once, it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. I'm gonna look that guy up. But it started to happen, like 3, 4 times, and I was like, okay, I don't know if he knows this, right? And it wasn't intentional where I was like interviewing a certain group of people, right? It was these were people that either were referred to the podcast or people that were on my radar, like Mimi J, who we're working to get that locked in now.
Yeah.
It was organic, just like that, and I was like, I wonder if he knows, that people are out here talking about him, that his name is ringing out. And I'm a Wire fan, so I love when he's like, my name is my name. So I was like, let me let Ryan know his name is ringing out here. So yeah, I totally agree, man. You are killing it, and I am so humbly grateful that you set aside some time to join the show.
Well, I appreciate their kind words. I appreciate you relaying the kind words, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on. It was an absolute blast. It didn't feel like an hour had already passed. And if there's anything that I can do to help you get other people on the podcast, or I'm gonna at her again as soon as I get done with this and say I wasn't kidding about what I tell her, I would buy her a book, right? Yeah,
Yes.
I wasn't kidding. You if you come on, I'll buy you a book. Like again, she doesn't need that to come on, but it's
Right.
if it motivates her to do it, and she's like, want to call me on my bluff, then cool, because she's going to get an amazing book. You're going to get an amazing podcast guest, and everybody wins.
Everybody wins. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been rocking with the great one, Ryan Lee Cox, on the Hawk Vision podcast. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe across all your social media platforms. Don't keep the vision to yourself. Like we always say, we will see you at the top or from the top. And remember, no miracle happens without someone doing something. Ryan, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thanks a lot for having me.